Inox Line, how you doing?
Hey, fine, and you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for asking. What is your question, bro?
Yeah, I want to know your opinion about the raid difficulties, because I think they should be more inspired by the old versions, like fixed raid groups for heroic, mythic maybe only cosmetics as reward, no power upgrade, and in my opinion, looking for raid should go.
Yeah.
I understand why it's in for people to play the story, but I think the flex version would be much better for normal, and everything higher should be better for the publisher, for Blizzard to balance the classes, the raids. And I think with 10 and 20 man raids it would be much better. And for dungeons, would stay like it is, but instead of M+, like now, it's more like the old challenging mode.
Yeah.
But that you get your item level fixed and you can make it harder every time you want.
Yep.
With fixes like now with the M+ system.
All right. So if I'm following your question, the first part of your question is the difficulty of raids, and
yes,
what I think the optimal difficulty of raids should be in World of Warcraft. Then your second part deals with Mythic Plus. So we'll deal with the first part first, and then we'll jump into the second part. So I'll ask you to ask your second question again after this. Okay, so let's talk about raiding difficulty. I have long said that World of Warcraft seems like a game that is confused about its difficulty settings. You have LFR, which by almost all measures is supposed to be the raiding experience for plebs. Yet most people I know avoid LFR because it's too fucking difficult to do with a bunch of random people. So people will oftentimes wipe for a long time on certain bosses in LFR simply because the bosses are just complex enough to where 30 strangers can't actually do the fucking boss. Now, that to me suggests that what the fuck are you doing? So why do you have this difficulty setting that wipes people that, these are the people that isn't good at raiding. They're not good players, nor do they want to be good players. They just sort of want to see the story, and yet you're wiping them on why are you making bosses that is wipeable, right? So that would be sort of my first gripe with something like LFR. It also seems to be a very toxic gameplay environment. Every single time I've been in LFR, half the group is AFK. There's almost always one or two people that's shitting on everyone else that isn't doing, according to them, the max amount of DPS, even though you're literally in the brain dead piece of content of the game. Like, this is where all the brain dead fucks hang out, doing their content, and you're shitting on them because they're not living up to your expectations. It's sort of like, dude, what were you hoping to find here? Method raiders? Like, these people are doing this because they can't be in fucking Method. That's why they're hanging out here. If you expected more, you should have made your own fucking group, right? That wasn't this. So I think LFR, from that sense, it was meant to be the story mode raid. And Evans, thank you so much for using that, because that's exactly the word I was looking for. It was meant to be the story mode, but it eventually turned into, I don't know, something weird that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Then you have normal, which effectively, because it's more organized, can actually most of the time be easier than LFR. So what's its purpose? Other than you need to be, like, you can't just click a button and go into normal. You have to first click a button to join a group and then go into normal. So it doesn't seem like normal has a purpose. Then you have heroic, which is meant to be content that is hard enough for most of the player base, but not so hard that only about 2% of the player base can do it, which is where Mythic would fall, right? Most of the time, that's not where Heroic falls. Most of the time, Heroic is sort of doable, by, I'd say, 40 to 50% of the player base relatively easy. Maybe 30 to 35% of the player base would struggle with heroic for, let's say, the better part of the life cycle of the raid. So whatever time, 6 months usually. If there's a new patch every 3 months, 6 months is how long the raid would live. And then you have Mythic, which is basically for the 5% of the player base that find heroic and normal piss easy. All right, well, none of this makes a lot of sense to me. Why do you have 4 raid difficulties when 2 of them are so obviously basically the same thing, right? Then you have the middle one, which is meant to be the thing that some people can do, but not everyone can do, but most people can do it if they really try. Be this weird thing that just doesn't exist or doesn't make sense. So I think that the raiding difficulty in World of Warcraft is bonkers right now. That's my genuine opinion on it. As bonkers as my explanation of it, because that's how difficult it is to understand. I also think just even if all things were working as intended, do you need that many difficulty settings? Like, is it really necessary? Because if you optimize, you could do that. You could absolutely have fewer pieces of content. So a good example of this would be, let's imagine they remove LFR and they make normal just a button press. So if you want to go into normal, you can absolutely just press normal whatever raid and you'll get sorted into a group and you can go do the dungeon with them. This is a normal dungeon, but you do give people that, what's it called? Determination stacks. In normal, but they get determination stacks if you sign up through the sort of automated system. So if you sign up through the looking for raid system for normal, you get determination stacks, which means eventually you'll just slaughter the normal bosses. If you sign up with an actual group that you formed and you go to the normal raid and you do the normal raid, you don't get those determination stacks. Therefore, you've now taken 2 difficulty settings, made it into one, and you've given people an actual game system that allows the content to be easy enough for them to do. I feel like that takes care of the LFR fiasco. Heroic needs to be upgraded significantly. It needs to be much harder, to the point where a large group of the player base will struggle on heroic for the better part of the raid cycle or the life cycle of the raid. It's so hard with WoW because as I'm talking, I'm reminded of things that I wish, because it's not easy to just go, fuck it, that's all they need. Because there's multiple things that's broken, in my opinion, within World of Warcraft. One is the raid sizes. I feel like the raid sizes are far too large. I would want Blizzard to bring raid sizes down. I would say 6 to 8 bosses, no less than 6, no more than 8 ever in a raid, and make it harder in heroic so that you do catch that 40 to 50% of players that is too good for normal, but not quite good enough for Mythic. Because right now, the way World of Warcraft exists is there's a very large group of people that is more than good enough for heroic. So heroic really doesn't provide them with much of a challenge, and they can kind of do the first 3 bosses on Mythic, but they're not actually good enough for Mythic. Does that make sense, what I'm saying in Exile?
Yeah.
Yeah, so so you're basically giving them the only place those players can find some kind of challenge is in Mythic, but they're not actually good enough for Mythic. So they're going to be wasting everyone else's time in Mythic because heroic wasn't hard enough for them. And then you scale that down to normal. This is where we would start talking about hard modes in raids. Why is that no longer a thing? Make normals, but then also hard mode normals. Make heroics, and then also hard mode heroics, and then make mythics. And to that question, I think mythics should be purely cosmetic. I don't think there should be any item levels within mythic raids. A mythic raid should be a cosmetic raid. So you go in there, you get a bunch of really cool transmog items, or you get items, but the items is the exact same item level as the ones that you got from heroic. They just look really cool. So you do look epic, and you get to show off that, hey, look at me, I did it on mythic. But I don't think mythic should provide another item level jump. Do you disagree with anything, or do you want to add anything in next line?
Yeah, for Mythic, I think the same. Should just cosmetics or cool mounts, whatever.
Yeah.
But I really think, well, how should I say it? I like I would call it now casual guilds.
Yeah.
Who are not focused only on raiding. That, yeah, for normal, these flex groups should stay.
Yeah.
But I think they should go back to the 2 raid size systems for heroic.
Oh yeah, that was another one of your...
And Mythic maybe.
Yeah, that was another one of
So
your
that
points.
smaller, yeah, so that smaller guilds can still raid with 10 men. And if you have bigger guilds, like the World First guilds,
Yeah.
they still can raid with 20 men.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like how it was before Mist of Pandaria and...
So I did this was a while ago, but we did a poll, I believe, on both Twitter and on YouTube. I'm quickly going to see if I can find this poll. But we asked people, do you believe... Here we go. So I asked people, when you think about raid sizes, which size of raid do you personally find the most enjoyable? At which size cap do you think you get the optimal amount of engagement, community, and social interaction? 62% of the people in the poll said 8 to 10 man is where they find the most enjoyment. 4.2k votes in that. Now, for those of you that might sit there and say, but Accolonn, that is obviously not a trustworthy poll, because, that's your community, and your community would feel the same way you do about stuff. I'm quickly going to see if I can find this exact poll on Twitter, because that one actually blew the fuck up. On Twitter, it kind of went apeshit. So just to be clear, on Twitter, I have 2,000... How many fucking followers do I have? Either 2,000 or 3,000. I think I have 2,200 or 2,300 followers on Twitter. So I don't have many followers. I had 6,900 votes. So clearly, not people in my community also saw this poll and voted. And again, the results are corroborated. 63.4% of people voted 8 to 10 man raids, and the next one up is 20 man raids. And the same goes for the one on YouTube. 15 to 20 man is 24% of the player base likes 15 to 20 man. 25 to 30 man, only 6% of the player base actually likes that raid size. 40 plus man, 7%. So right now, World of Warcraft's raids that is set to 30 man max is disliked by the vast majority of players. They don't want a 30 man raid. So why the fuck is it even there? Here's what I would like to see from raid sizes in World of Warcraft. 10 man raids only. All raids are 10 man. That goes for normal, heroic, and mythic. 10 man. That's it. Once an expansion, you have a 20 man raid, which is a very special 12 boss 20 man raid. And once per expansion, or maybe once every 2 expansions, you have a very special 40 man raid. That way, for players that really love the bigger group sizes of raids, you do have that content, but because it's not every single patch, you're not necessarily going to do that content with your guild. Instead, you're probably going to find a group that you can do that content with, or maybe your guild and another guild merges for that content. So you're still 2 guilds, but you join up for the night so that you can go do the 20 man, and then for 40 man, the same thing. I feel like smaller group sizes lead to a lot more social interaction. You also feel a lot more helpful in a 10 man group, because what you do actually makes a difference. Whereas when you get to 20 man, when you get to 25 man, it's very easy to feel like, well, who even gives a fuck, right? Whether I'm here, whether I'm not here, does it even matter? So that is what I think. I feel like, and Evans has a good idea here. You can literally have it to where you have 20 man raids as well as 40 man raids, but all of the mechanics in those raids require groups to split. So your 10 man group will do one half of the tactics, and the other 10 man group will do the other half of the tactics. You're simply just going into the raid at the same time with a guild that you really like. So there's some really cool shit that you could do around 20-man and 40-man raids. But I would prefer if there was one raid size in World of Warcraft and everything in the game is built around this one raid size. We can disagree on the exact size. So you could tell me, well, actually, Accolonn, I think 25-man is better. All right, cool. Let's make it 25-man then. Or let's make it 10-man. But let's stop with this 10 to 30-man. Who the fuck wants 10 to 30-man? Like, pick a size and then have that be the size. And make sure that the game is balanced around that size. That's sort of what I would prefer more in terms of World of Warcraft. I don't like the flex thing because I don't think that's how games should be played. It shouldn't. I hate the flex thing. But anyways, everyone will have their own opinions on that. What was your question about Mythic Plus, though?
Yeah, I think it should change back to the challenging mode, but with M+ elements. So the gearing wouldn't be a problem anymore because you don't have this much content to gear up. But my thoughts about it, you have like the Mists of Pandaria challenging mode. You can do it, you get your cosmetics or whatever they will implement, pets, mounts, whatever. But if you want them, if you want to push your limits, you can add affixes like in M+ now. And if you get higher and higher, maybe they lower the item level, the fixed item level.
Yeah.
So it's get more challenging for the people. But I think M+ is a big problem for the whole game.
Yeah.
Because it destroys a lot of the loot system.
Yeah.
And the balancing system.
So I don't necessarily agree with your take on the Mythic Plus system. Specifically not in terms of it destroying the loot system. So first and foremost, I think touching Mythic Plus will piss off a massive portion of the player base. Not as big as most people think, because in terms of Mythic Plus players, we ran the logs. I looked at how many logs there are for Mythic Plus. It's not that many. It's maybe 10-15% of the player base that actually logs themselves doing Mythic Plus. So clearly Mythic Plus is not as big as some people think it is. Raiding is even smaller than that, by the way. So if you put those groups together, you're still basically coming to about 20-30% of the player base that actually raids in Mythic Pluses, right? But that's still a significant portion that I don't want to piss off. I want the game to include more people and give more people the ability to have fun, not less. So I wouldn't remove the Mythic Plus system. The way in which you solve... So I think I should just clarify what I'm about when it comes to finding solutions to the game. I think a final... as a final resort, you can look at removing something, but it must always be the final resort. So if you've tried every other possible fix and it still won't work, then you remove it. But I don't think we're there yet. The problem with Blizzard so often is as soon as something doesn't work, their answer to it not working is remove it. It's like, dude, but why though? Like, it had potential and there were actually people that enjoyed this, and now you're just removing it because it didn't exactly work the way that you thought it would work. So what I want from Mythic Plus, and I believe that this solves your problem with Mythic Plus, but then also I think will allow for a lot more customization and freedom within Mythic Plus, is Mythic Plus having its own gearing system. The gear in World of Warcraft is a mess because so much of it is shared, and for some reason the Blizzard developers seem to be okay with PvPers getting some of their items from the raid. They're sort of like, Brian Alinka actually said this in his interview with Mr. GM. He was like, you know, we're okay with someone maybe needing a trinket from the raid, as long as it's not all of their gear that they need from the raid in order to PvP, we're fine with it. And I'm like, did you realize that a lot of people only PvP? Like, that's what they do. So why the fuck would you think someone that wants to bash other players in the skull with a wand wants to then also bash some NPC in the skull with a wand. It's two different play styles. Why would you think it's okay for the gear to be shared? It's not how the game is played. And I get what a lot of people will sort of regurgitate the bullshit that Blizzard spews around this, because Blizzard's argument is it's a game and the game needs to feel the same on, like, everything needs to feel like it's connected. It's one of the reasons Blizzard have always sort of not wanted to have different playstyles for PvP and PvE, because they want you to feel like a warlock in the open world, feel like a warlock in the raid, as well as feel like a warlock in PvP. And it's like, okay, I get this, but you realize that your philosophy around what you really want the player base to do is literally not how the player base plays. So your philosophy is running counter to how the player base approaches the game. Because most people I know are either raiders or Mythic Plus players or PvPers. I know so few people that do all three of those at a high level. Like, I know a lot of people that will Mythic Plus and then for fun do some PvP, or raid and for fun do some Mythic Plus. I know very few people that hardcore raid and hardcore Mythic Plus and hardcore PvP. So why are these things still sharing gear profiles? Just make different gear for different fucking instances and let players choose where they want to play and how they want to play. And then you allow the way you solve the issue of people just not being geared because they haven't done something, you allow for something like raiding gear to be good starting gear for PvP. So if you're just starting out in PvP, you're going to be fine with just raiding gear. You're not going to be the best, but you're going to be fine. And then you allow for PvP gear to be good intro gear for Mythic Plus. You're not going to be able to push plus 15 keys, but you will be able to push plus 5, plus 6 until you get gear for plus 10, plus 15. This, in my mind, is how you solve all of the problems that you just mentioned. Would that be something that you agree with, or is it still a problem for you?
Yeah. For Dragonflight, we will get the old Warlords of Draenor PvP gear style.
Yeah.
We get fixed item levels for the content we do. Hana gear has item level X, and Arena gear has item level Epsilon.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
so they are fixed, and you can play with your PvE gear for starting.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, I don't know if they should do the same with M+.
Okay.
Or should it be how should I call it? Bonus content?
Yeah.
That you can make with your PvE gear, but don't increase your player power directly.
See, the problem is a lot of people play for player power increases. So if you remove player power increase, a lot of people will feel like, well, what's the point? Sadly, that's not how games are supposed to be played, but a lot of WoW players have been brainwashed into this. Gear isn't just a tool to provide content, gear is the content. So when you talk to a lot of WoW players, specifically players that's never played any other game than World of Warcraft, or any Blizzard game really, because if you think about it, every game that comes out of Blizzard is just designed in the most fucking useless way possible to basically promote the weirdest playstyles. Gear is supposed to be the tool that allows for more content. Like, it's supposed to open more content to you. In World of Warcraft, gear is the content for a lot of players. So if you remove gear, a lot of people are going to be like, but my purple pixels, and then they're gonna have to go to the hospital because they had a fucking heart attack. So you can't do that anymore. Blizzard have created a sickness within a lot of players, and that sickness isn't just gonna go away. I don't even think it can be reversed at this point. I think this is what you have, this is what you built. You have to now sort of figure out how to design around that, right? So yeah, I wouldn't remove gear, like player power, from anything in WoW that is PvP, raiding, or Mythic Plus related. I don't think it would work.
Okay.
I mean, I know enough people, believe me, I know more than enough people. We had, way back in the day, during Legion, we were progressing on Argus. We were geared to the fucking hilt. Like, we were absolutely fully geared. No one needed anything from the from the raid? Not really. We had one mage that not all of his items had Titan Forged yet. And so we decided that, well, almost no one's items were completely Titan Forged, but this one mage, this was a problem for him. So we decided to do a lockout on Argus so that we can actually get it down, because no one needs any more gear from Argus on Mythic. Like, we are over gearing Argus Mythic at this point. We're well over gearing it. We should be able to do it. He left. He left the guild because we wouldn't do full clears every single week, because God forbid if he doesn't get the extra 2 item levels that he still needs. So believe me when I tell you, there are a lot of players that are fucking addicted to the purple pixels. And if you remove those purple pixels, they will lose their shit, because it's what they live for. It's sad because that's not how games are supposed to be, but it is where we are. And again, I want everyone to be happy. The last thing I want is to remove things from people when I know that that's going to lead to unhappiness. So yeah, but anyways, thanks for the question, and X-Line, I really appreciate it. Is there anything else? Because I do have to get some of the other people in here as well.
No, that's all from my side.
Well, in Oxline, I really appreciate the question. It was quite fun to answer. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no problem. Have a nice day.
The same to you, man. Take care of yourself.